Hey, Post-Row Jen. Welcome to this new episode of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I'm Kristan Hawkins, your host.
The mainstream media and abortion lobby claim that the pro-life movement is just a bunch of old white men. Well, I ain't old nor white, but I am a man. And as a man, I'm calling men to a higher standard. I'm Kongman, and I'm launching a new show called Man Up, powered by Students for Life. Being a man doesn't always look like being super brawny and rugged. I can't even grow a beard because of my genetics. I'm so sad. But being a man means to be strong, disciplined, and courageous. It means to be a provider and protector of the most vulnerable in society, and particularly our children. And today, in the midst of a literal genocide against babies in the womb, we, as men, must stand up to vanquish the atrocity of abortion and protect innocent lives. On this show, you'll get pro-life commentary from the perspective of a man concerned with waking up the next generation of men and exposing the hypocrisy and insanity of the pro-abortion side. So no, I don't have a uterus, but you bet I'll be giving my opinion. Let's take back the culture, one non-uterus holder at a time, and man up.
You know, over the last year leading up to the Dobbs decision, the Roe reversal, America has probably seen more media coverage than ever on abortion. And at Students for Life, we see this every day. We measure all of the earned media coverage that just the pro-life generation generates. It's tens of millions of dollars every month. But that's really only a drop in the bucket of all the abortion coverage that's out there, which is overwhelmingly pro-abortion. Today's guest is an expert on why that may be. Lyndsay Keith is the co-host of Spicer and Company at Newsmax. Y'all might have seen her on TV before. She joined Newsmax after a decade of working in strategic communications, marketing, politics, and media relations. She earned her master's degree in media communications from Liberty University. She worked in broadcast journalism during graduate school as a reporter for the Liberty Flames sports network. So that means she knows sports. So she's like one of those women that every man loves. In the years following her time at Liberty, Lyndsay served as advance press lead for Mitt Romney's presidential campaign, directed media relations for the 2015-2016 presidential debates, and managed executive engagement and brand strategy for major corporations like Google. Lyndsay and Sean Spicer actually worked together on the presidential primary debates, and their paths crossed again when Lyndsay served as deputy director of communications at the Republican National Committee. Now she and Sean Spicer work together to bring viewers across America an inside look every day into politics and current events. Lyndsay, thanks for joining me today.
Kristan, it's so great to be with you. I love your podcast, so thank you for bringing me on. It's a huge honor to speak with you.
Well, it's awkward to be interviewing you. Usually I'm on your show.
That's a good point. I've interviewed you quite a few times now, so role reversal here.
Yeah, I guess I'm in charge now. This will be fun. So I as I told you before, since our family travels around, I'm always like fingers crossed praying my Wi-Fi holds up when you interview me. So now I'm in Airbnb and I've got the Wi-Fi going, so this will actually be good. I won't be worrying about having to use one of my 4 internet systems.
No, I'm in your seat because normally I'm in the studio and I'm in my house. So definitely, now I know what it feels like.
There you go.
You know, journalism, 101, I would think, would teach, the distinction between reporting facts and stating opinions. But that line has been completely blurred in the past couple of months and weeks following the abortion decision. Anything relating to abortion at all, it almost seems like it, and I think if you ask any kind of pro-lifer, it's a foregone conclusion that if the mainstream media is talking about abortion, it's going to be unapologetically biased in favor of abortion. The AP handbook, for example, provides, language guidelines for, many journalistic outlets, is constantly revising its standards, for goodness sakes, to, downplay abortion. They say to call us pro-life advocates anti-abortion advocates, and those who, are pro-choice advocates, which it doesn't even make sense. I'm proudly anti-abortion, but what does that make you? And no one ever likes to answer that question. So I have asked you on today to explain what is going on here. How did an industry that's supposed to be reporting actual facts get completely one-sided on this issue? What is going on?
It's fascinating to see. And as you mentioned, we've seen it, an onslaught of it just in the last few months with the reversal of Roe. But we've really seen, if you take a step back, a shift in journalism over, I would say, the last even decade. When I worked for the Romney campaign back in 2012, I worked very closely day in and day out with the National Press Corps. And then I would see the bias. I would see what was actually happening with my own eyes, and then see what they were reporting. And oftentimes it would just blow my mind, like, that wasn't true at all, or you're framing this to make a certain point. People would ask me after that, so this is 2012, is the media biased? And I would say, absolutely. And I think you fast forward to today, where we have such a polarized country, and what has happened to journalism? You go to journalism schools, what are they teaching these people in classrooms? They're empowering them to be social justice warriors. And oftentimes when I even talk to students who are in journalism school, that is one of the reasons they want to go into journalism. They want to set their truth. They want to set their worldview into action, and they want to use the pen, the power of the pen, to do that through journalism. As you know, that's not what journalism should be. At the end of the day, I feel bad for the American people, because then it puts more onus on them to dig deeper for facts and for truths. But we're seeing that words really matter. As you mentioned, when I listen to any of the mainstream media, oftentimes they will never say a group like yours is pro-life. They'll say you're anti-abortion, these anti-abortion groups, which you're right, great, I am anti-abortion, but they're almost trying to shed you in a negative light.
That's right.
And I even think about this administration, the Biden administration, or anybody, how do they talk about this issue? It's women's rights, it's reproductive health care. And so when you frame it in that way, then the media jumps on board. Of course we should be caring about women. Of course we should be caring about reproductive rights, which I care about women's health. I care about reproductive rights, but I also care about the second patient, which is the baby in the womb that can't speak up for itself. And they completely leave, which is fascinating because they're not for social justice, but they completely leave the human dignity out of the second patient. And that's unfortunate. But to answer your question, it really is because these people are framing, they are biased, right? We're all biased, we're humans, no one's a robot, but they're allowing that to lead and frame this story, opposed to being objective and stepping back. And I think they're so liberal, and that's what sells, that they just keep doing it. It perpetuates itself, because that is what sells at the end of the day.
I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of, I remember there was an article about a year ago. So there was that situation in Georgia where the MLB did something, and then something happened in Georgia, and then the MLB said they weren't going to play their championship game there. And there was a bunch of corporations got upset with Georgia, and there was articles being written about, woke corporate business culture. And there was I remember they interviewed, somebody from Yale, so one of the top schools in our country, and there was a professor basically saying that there has been an ongoing effort in business schools across America to inundate business schools to show business leaders that, not only are you going to be responsible to your shareholders and maximizing profit, employee retention, all of these things, bring innovative tools and products to the market, but you also have this great responsibility as a business leader to get your values and your worldview across, and to use your business platforms to do that. And I think what you're saying is that's exactly what's happened in journalism schools, that there's been some sort of shift that's happened where, are professors encouraging this behavior of, oh, you're a social justice warrior, instead of going and getting a poli-sci degree, go get your journalism degree?
I would, I'm not in journalism school, but I don't think that they're stepping back from it. And the students I'm talking to, they are encouraging it. And when people are writing papers or, talking about that, it is encouraged. It's not saying, oh, this is not objective, because what is objective anymore? And I think this is, for me, I have a Christian worldview. And when you are setting your standard on your own truth, then what is objective truth anymore? if you see it as this is a women's body and women's right, then what's objective truth? And this is why, I say you have to go back to the science. What does the science actually tell us at the end of the day? But for them, if you're setting your standard on your own truth or on the truth that the media is telling you or politics, then it's always going to be shifting. And that is the problem. And so you see there's if you look 100 years ago, this would have been a no-brainer issue. And now you fast forward, but they would tout that as progressive. We are progressive, which is great. And I do want to make a point too, what you said, because you're mentioning the MLB All-Star game in Atlanta with Georgia's voting record law. That was the outcry, right?
Oh, thank you for,
Well, I worked at Google for a while. And, something that I noticed then, it's true. It's the employees have a lot of power, but that's new, because oftentimes it's the shareholders or the consumer should have the power. They're the ones pouring money or buying the product. They should have the power. But we're seeing a shift into companies, and we saw that clearly played out in Atlanta. But I also think that we see that with the media. What sells, and I mentioned that, what sells is conflict, and what sells is pretty much telling people what they want. And we've seen a huge shift. And, CNN, I would say 20 years ago was pretty middle of the road, maybe a little bit left. And now it has moved very, very far left. If you're watching CNN, you know that you're going to get a different viewpoint, but people who tune in, they kind of know that, and they want to be told what they made comfortable, essentially. They don't want to be challenged in their viewpoint. Yeah. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because it's also about the viewers. I did 2 days after the Dobbs decision, I did a couple of CNN interviews, and one of them I was being interviewed by a reporter who used to be on Fox News. And then I got on and I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So you're pro-abortion now. Wasn't sure, but now I'm 100%. And so I did the interview, and we put it up on social media on YouTube, and then CNN put it up on YouTube. And I brought up both of the clips, the exact same clip, and the comments are stark. The comments from Students for Life's YouTube were like, wow, Kristan Hawkins smacked her down with facts. And that was bloody to watch, because it was just so hard. She was just getting slapped all over the place. And I wasn't violent at all. But it was funny because, from the pro-lifers, it was a win for the pro-life column. And then I read the CNN columns, was like, that person's a moron. Why is CNN even letting idiots on the air? She knew nothing. And then, they called me fat a bajillion of times, because, they're so loving and respectful of other human beings. But it was so interesting because it was the same clip, but the viewership was so different.
Yeah. And viewers, I would say in many ways, so this is the difference. Viewers actually still do drive a lot of what makes money. And that, I think, is why it's so important that Americans are having conversations with their neighbors. I mean, that's where change happens in small community, right? And going out, what you guys do, you are in college campuses, you go door to door, and having those one-on-one conversations. I think about a lot of my liberal friends. It's come up oftentimes that I am pro-life. And I remember one conversation I had with a very liberal friend, and she goes, but you aren't so conservative that you're pro-life, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, actually. But then when I ended up having the conversation, which, it's awkward, right? She's already attacking me. Great friend though. I started talking about the science behind it. This was a grown woman who actually was trying to get pregnant and did not know the fetal development stages. And that has been a testament to so many conversations that I've had, Kristan, which is fascinating. People don't know the facts. They don't know the science. No one's challenging on the science. They're learning oftentimes in silos from listening to people that have the same viewpoint as them and not being challenged. And that's why these one-on-one conversations are so important, because when you can have it with grace and kindness and just say, hey, this is, I said to her, I see this as a life. So if someone wants to take a life at 12 weeks, to me, that would be murder. Shouldn't I be against that if that is my world? And she goes, oh, that's interesting. And, so she didn't become pro-life in that conversation, but I definitely moved the needle. And I think that's what we need to see more and more, because when these people are being inundated with, this is, women's rights, it's her body, then we have to shift the narrative to the truth. But there should be no offense in that. Oftentimes I feel bad for a lot of these people that I almost feel like they've been blinded from the truth, or they don't expose themselves to the truth because it's easier just to believe what you want and be able to make the decision you want with no consequences, right? And they don't want to have the consequences almost of the truth and the burden of knowledge almost.
No, you're absolutely right. I think what you said there actually demonstrates, our kind of model at Students for Life is belong, believe, behave. Because it's the John Maxwell adage of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so you can be giving people facts and stories all day long, but if they're not going to stop and listen to you, if they think you're an evil person to begin with, they're not actually ever going to listen or internalize what you're saying. And so what was so powerful about your story is she was your friend. You already loved each other and had respect for each other. So then when you spoke the truth about abortion, even though she wasn't really willing, because we have to think about changing your mind about abortion is often like a whole worldview shift, and decisions you've made throughout your life or you're currently making might have to be reevaluated. So there's a lot of people who are very stubborn and resistant to making that shift to saying they're against abortion. But you planted that seed and she let you because she was able to listen to what you said. And I think that's what's so I keep talking about like the mainstream media's coverage of the pro-life movement's winning, and they're doing all these self-diagnostics of why they lost. And one of the things that we keep seeing reported, and I just giggle and laugh, is their big thing, the secret sauce that they're identifying, that what we do at Students for Life and other groups are doing, is that we keep talking about abortion, even to people who disagree with us. And so we don't just label somebody a racist or bigot and refuse to talk to them. We say, no, let's have the conversation. And you're right. That's exactly how we change culture. So what is I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot to like speak for all of the mainstream media today. So sorry you have to do that. But how do we fix all of you? Like, what's the path forward that we should be encouraging? One thing I would say is, if you're a pro-life student, young person, and you're trying to decide between career paths, journalism may be a great place for you to be, enter into.
Yeah, obviously I'm a journalist. I'm an opinion host. I think it's a hard industry to be in these days, but it can be rewarding. For me, I'm in an outlet, Newsmax, where they empower me to speak the truth and speak my opinion on being pro-life, which is incredible. I've been able to have people like you on to speak to our audience. I've been able to have pro-life obstetrician gynecologist on to talk about the science, because at the end of the day, for me, if I'm talking to somebody who is pro-abortion, then I want to show them the facts. I don't want to talk to them about my faith. I don't want to talk to them about that. I want to talk about, hey, this is an ethical decision that we should be having. What we need, I always say this, when I was in grad school at Liberty, I had to study media ethics. And one of the things that I didn't know at the time was that Hollywood used to be predominantly Christian. And then things kind of started shifting. And so they exodused and they left. And now you look at Hollywood today, Christians or people of faith had the opportunity to lean in. This is not a time to lean out if you are, of faith. This is a time to lean in. So I say we need more conservatives in places like Google, like Facebook, in government. We need more conservatives in the pro-life movement. We need more conservatives in journalism. So lean in. We need you. It's not time to, be afraid and run away. It doesn't mean the work is easy. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. You will have opposition. We need more conservative people to run into media. And I think sometimes it's hard because you think you're swimming upstream, but we have to empower people to jump into these very important positions and roles so that conservatives can have a louder voice. And ultimately, I think that's what places like Newsmax are doing, but we need more of it. And I am encouraged to see at least, something I've seen through your group and others, even being when I was at the Supreme Court after the Roe decision was leaked and once it actually came out, the youth And how many young people are pro-life? You look at the March for Life, that is one of the things when I was watching the buses unload, it's so many young people. And I think you always say this is a pro-life generation. Well, let's get those pro-life people into positions where they're speaking truth, you know, from the mountaintops. Because people, when I was in high school, I was on the forensics team, and I actually did a debate, a speech on abortion. I had a sister who was stillborn, and that is what has made me such an advocate for life, because I held her and I saw that it was a human. And I thought, how can someone kill this? And from that moment on, I was 16. I just wanted to fight for life. I wanted to go into medicine. God didn't have that path for me. But at the end of the day, I would talk to these girls in high school. And these are, 16 to 18-year-olds. They had no clue that it was a baby. They're like, no one's ever told me this. No one's ever talked to me about the facts. Those people now are my age. They're, in different vocations around the world. We need young people to start speaking up. And that's why I say lean in. If you feel like, journalism is right for you, lean in and be proud of that, and be proud of like getting the facts, because at the end of the day, it is true. The pro-life angle is really downplayed and even, as you said, ostracized in the media, which is really sad. And there's just a lot of untruths that pro-life people don't care about women. They only care about the baby. As you fight all these battles every day. But so for me, I feel the opportunity to actually speak truth into those. Obviously, it's a passion project for me, but because I know it's not based in truth. And so that's why I say, my main point, lean in and take on the fight.
Amen. Amen, sister. That's exactly right. I mean, we talk about this so much in this podcast of whatever your calling or niche or talent may be, or life experiences, use that for the pro-life movement and be unapologetically pro-life. Be bold. Be explicitly pro-life. Lyndsay, what else can we do? So I think we definitely need to lean in. What do we do now? So if we're successful and we raise up a whole generation of pro-life journalists, which, hopefully everyone listens, does that, what can we do like right now? Is it boycotting like CNN, MSNBC, and only watching Newsmax and maybe sometimes Fox News, depending on the host? Or is it watching CNN and MSNBC and trying to hold those people to account? What do you think would have the most impact as someone who's there behind the scenes that would reach these journalists to like maybe charge them to like seek objective truth or just talk about facts instead of opinion once and for all?
Yeah, I think it'd be two things. So for the viewer, I would say, viewership and dollars matter. So put your viewers on networks that you feel like are speaking the truth. I like to watch a little bit of everything just to know what's happening. But at the end of the day, that is what's going to drive things. And to people like you to be having the conversations with liberal journalists one-on-one, maybe it's not on air, maybe it's off air, because like you said, to know that you care. And this is not some, on air, it might be the battle, but off air, it's helping show the truth of, hey, this is what you could be doing. And also, the fascinating thing is, if you look at polling, which you do, the country is very divided on this as well. So they're really not showing a good representation of how the country feels about it by only showing one view, actually offending a lot of people as well. And so that's why I would say that's what people could be doing right now. And then I love what you said. Be unapologetically pro-life. It's something that sometimes I feel like conservatives are on the defense oftentimes, because we're attacked for, you don't care about women, you don't care about this. If you know the facts, you have nothing to apologize for. And this is something that I've seen. I've been in positions where I was the only conservative. Obviously, I'm on a conservative network now, but I've been in positions where I was the token conservative. And I was able to have opportunities to have these one-on-one conversations because I was a conservative and I didn't hide it. I would have so many people come to me in private or in public and have honest conversations with me. And I do feel like I was able to move the needle a little bit or speak truth into their life. And no one had ever had these conversations with them, because most people like to surround themselves with people that are like-minded. And so they're not challenged by any other ideals. And so it is an opportunity. Don't be afraid. And if it's somebody who is your friend and you tell them how you feel, if they're a good friend, they're not going to walk away and they're not going to end your friendship over that. And I've experienced that as well. I feel like I've been rewarded oftentimes when I spoke truth into someone's life or had a debated conversation, even heated. And people appreciate that you can still have that and still be their friend. And so that's what I would say as far as what people can do now.
I think that's absolutely right. I know Christy Hamrick, our chief media strategist, and myself, we've had so many off the record conversations with journalists over the years where I almost feel like I should start, I always gotta count everything in Students for Life, like how many conversations we have, how many conversions we have. I almost think we should create a metric for it because we've been able to educate so many reporters, even if it never makes it in the story. We were able to show, I remember I had the Washington Post reporter kind of come to a campus with me recently, and we drove around and went to dinner, and just to be able to show her that, wow, we actually mean what we say when we say we want to spare women and children from the violence of abortion, and have that honest dialogue of, well, what do you mean by that? And how can you be pro-woman and be against abortion and be against socialized medicine, and then me be able to share my story about my children and socialized medicine and what does that mean and how does that not protect the most vulnerable children and vulnerable people? And so I think it helps build that rapport. So I think one of the things of what you were saying, just to emphasize, if you're contacted by a reporter, obviously look into that reporter and where they stand and kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But I don't think you should be afraid to say, oh, I'm never going to talk to any reporters from the AP or BBC or whatever, because they're going to be biased. Well, yes, they most likely will be biased, but you can have a contact with them that can be transformational, that might soften their hearts to be willing to cover pro-lifers. And then not to mention getting, the pro-life voice represented in that story or news piece could be very helpful for someone who's, ill-informed and trying to make up their mind. So Lyndsay, thanks for joining us today. This was a really fun conversation to have, to get kind of an inside look into your world as a journalist, in a place where it's increasingly hostile to the pro-life opinion. Where can folks, obviously watch Spicer and Company and Newsmax, but where can folks follow you?
Yeah, so obviously we have our app, Newsmax. You can watch 5 p.m. Spicer and Company. Also Twitter, Instagram, Lyndsay M. Keith is my handle. My name is spelled weird, so you might have to have trouble finding me. But Lyndsay M. Keith, and and this is something, human rights is so important to me. And so it is something I will continue to advocate for in any form of career that I have, and continue to have people like you on the show and get to talk to you. So thank you for having me on. It's such an important topic. And I think, one of the saddest things that our society in America has really dropped the ball on, an opportunity for conservatives to step up and show how much we care about women and how much we care about those who can't speak up for themselves.
Amen. Amen to that. And thank you for all that you do. You are definitely I know we don't think of you as being on TV as a mission field, but you are in a mission field. So thanks for your willingness to be unapologetically pro-life. And thank you all for tuning in today and listening to this new episode of Explicitly Pro-Life. I hope it was informative. I hope it gave you the boost you need to stand up and say, yes, I'm pro-life. Yes, I'm going to speak truth. Yes, I'm going to have those hard conversations with family and friends about abortion, because those are the conversations that are going to be the most impactful ones that you will have, and have that ability to plant those seeds of truth and hopefully change minds about the violence of abortion. Thank you all for tuning in this week. Make sure you subscribe.